Aloha and welcome back to the fourth episode of Editing in Premiere. At this point, you've probably got your 7 sequences, your 7 stand-ups assembled as a sequence on the timeline. I've almost got mine done. I've left a little bit to work with because I want to show you a couple of things that have probably happened or might have happened to you so far. Now, you can see that I've got stand-ups 1 through 6 gone, and I've marked my in point and my out point on stand-up 7, but I can't see far enough on the timeline to get to it. You probably noticed that as your timeline filled up, a scroll bar appeared here at the bottom, so I can scroll back and forth. So simply getting to the end to add a clip is not that difficult. It would be nice, wouldn't it, if I could zoom in and out so I could see more or less of the timeline? Well, of course I can do that. There's a couple of things I can do. The ends of this scroll bar are little circular dots, and if I click and drag, it becomes a dynamic zoom, right? So I can click and pull so that I can zoom out to see my entire timeline. Or if I wanted to zoom in on that clip, for example, stand-up 3, right, I park the playhead there, and then I can click and drag towards the center, and it will zoom in like that. Now, that works just fine, but I can do this also without using the mouse. If you look on your keyboard and find the plus and minus keys, the little ones above the letters, not the ones on the right-hand side, plus and minus will zoom in and out on the timeline. So minus zooms out, and plus zooms in. And there's even a cool shortcut that's very common that you would want to see the entire timeline at once. If you hit the backslash key, this is the one right above the return key and underneath delete, it will automatically take you to a full timeline view. It doesn't matter how much material you've got on the timeline. If it's 1 second or 10 hours, it will all fit. And that actually toggles. If I press the same key again, the backslash key again, it will go back to where I was before I pressed it. So that can be a real time saver when you're looking around. You want to see the entire timeline, figure out where you should have been, and then zoom back in. Okay, now I've made a couple of mistakes here. We'll pretend that they're mistakes anyway. So I have, for example, 2 copies of stand-up 7 down here at the end. I just, was so excited about demonstrating this, I placed the same clip on the timeline twice. Well, that's not that big a deal. All I have to do is select one of these and then press the delete key on my keyboard, and it will go away. All right. But you know what? Let me make that just a little bit bigger. If we look at this, I've got stand-up 1, stand-up 2, stand-up 2, stand-up 3. I did the same thing back here in the middle of the exercise. Doggone it. I have an extra copy of stand-up 2 in the middle of the project. Well, okay. I can click on that and hit delete, and it will go away. Not only will it go away, it will leave a hole behind. Maybe this is a good thing, maybe not. If I don't want the hole there, there's a couple of things I can do. The easiest is actually to click the hole itself, and you notice that it selected the hole, and then I can delete that. Being able to delete an empty space is a very useful, very powerful thing, and if you find that you've accidentally created spaces on your timeline, it can really be a lifesaver. Let me undo that. I'm going to hit Command-Z once to put the hole back, and Command-Z a second time to put the clip back. Now, what if I could delete the clip and close the hole at the same time? Well, I can, and this is called a ripple delete. So if I click and select the clip that I want to have gone, so I've got 2 copies of stand-up 2, I'm going to select one of them. If I hold down the Shift key and hit delete, watch what happens. Now, it has to be the little delete, not the big delete, but the little delete key that's, in the little island in between the keypad and the number pad. But look what happened. Let me undo that so I can do it again. Selecting that, holding down Shift and hitting the little delete button. It deletes the clip and it closes the hole. This is called a ripple delete. This is a very time-effective way to close stuff up. If you realize you need to get rid of something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be as obvious as what I just did there with two things repeating each other, but you want to delete something from the middle of the timeline and you want the timeline to shorten up to close the hole, use the ripple delete. You just hit Shift Delete. If you have a hard time remembering that, you can always look in the Edit menu. And there we go, ripple delete. Shift with the little delete key. All right. Now I've made another mistake here. So we've got stand up 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. I forgot to put stand up 5 there. It should have gone between these two clips. Well, let me come back over here and double click stand up 5. Look, I even made an in point and an out point. I just forgot to put it on the timeline. Okay. So what I could do, and this is the clumsy way to do it, is I could select these clips that'll be to the right of it and move them out of the way, right? So by clicking and dragging, I'm going to start up here in an empty space. I can draw a box that will select both of these two. Then I can click them and slide them way over here so they're out of the way. Then I could drag clip 5 down here into the space where it was supposed to be. Then I could select the gap and I could delete the gap. That totally worked, but how many steps was that? That was like 5 steps, right? So let me undo that. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I exaggerated, but still, it was several steps. What I could do instead is just click and drag it down here, but I have to be careful about something. If I just click and drag it down without doing anything else, it's not going to go in between 4 and 6. It's going to go on top of 6. Right? So if we look at how 6 starts.
And cut. All right, now that we've brewed our coffee.
I've got another mistake that we'll get around to fixing there. But he starts by saying, all right, now that we've brewed our coffee. Okay, remember that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag this, and I'm going to place it right there at the spot where 4 ends and 6 begins. All right, and you can see that's where it's going to go. I'm going to put it on the same layer. And it went, but nothing else moved, right? So stand up 6 actually got shorter. I replaced part of it. So stand up 6 now starts in the middle.
Consistency. Put a nice froth on the top of it.
Right? I messed stand up 6 up by doing that. This is called an overwrite edit. The video and the audio that I brought down replaced or wrote over the top of the video and the audio that were already there. That's not what I wanted to do, so let me hit Command Z to undo it. What I wanted to do was I wanted to insert clip 5 between 4 and 6. So I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to click and pull it down here, but rather than turning it loose now that I have it lined up, I am going to press and hold the Command key. Now notice as soon as I press the Command key that these little right arrow icons have popped up. And I'm going to take my thumb off the Command key. I'm still holding the mouse. All right, so you see it appearing and disappearing. And what that is going to do is it's going to push everything down out of the way. So holding the Command key, I'm going to turn loose with my thumb on the left mouse button. And look what it did. It actually pushed stand up 6 and stand up 7 over to the right to make room for stand up 5. So stand up 6 is now intact.
Consistency. All right, now that we've brewed our...
All right, let me undo that. So I'm going to demonstrate this just using a second layer of video so you can see clearly. So the first I'm going to do an overwrite. I'm just going to drag this down here and put it so that it lines up at the junction between 4 and 6. And when I turn it loose, you see that there's stand up 5, there's stand up 6. Stand up 6 did not move, neither did stand up 7. So stand up 5 and stand up 6 are now competing for the same space here. Let me undo that. And I'm going to do the same thing, except now I'm going to hold the Command key down. And you can see that it pushed everything that was to the right of that moment further to the right down the timeline. And you can see that it did that because there's a hole here, the same size as stand up 5. All right, that looks terrible. I don't like editing that way, so I'm going to do the same thing just on the same layer. So I'm holding the mouse button down. I haven't turned it loose yet. I've got stand up 5 lined up right there between 4 and 6. I'm going to hold the command key down so I see those right arrows, and I'm going to turn loose with my thumb. And voila! Stand ups 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all in order. Okay. So even if you need to go back and put something in the middle of a timeline, in the middle of a sequence of events you've already strung together, it's easy to do. You can do an insert edit, and you can do the insert edit just by holding the command key down when you drag your thing into place. If you need to get rid of something in the middle of a sequence, you can do it just by selecting the thing. I'm going to select stand up 5 here. If you want to leave the space behind, just hit delete. And it will delete the clip, but leave the space. Let me undo that. If you want to get rid of the clip and you want to close the space behind it, hit Shift and delete. It has to be the little delete key, not the big delete key. I guess the big delete key is actually, no, they're both called delete on my keyboard. I thought one of them might be backspace. Anyway, hold down Shift and press the little delete key, and that's called a ripple delete. It will delete whatever it was you selected, and it will close the hole behind it. Let me undo that. Okay. The next thing that we're going to talk about in the next episode is called trimming. Now that we've got everything on the timeline, not everything is perfect. I'll show you how to fix it. Coming up next.